Have you ever felt a presence in the room, a shiver down your spine telling you you're not alone? Imagine sharing your most private space with someone you think you know. But what if they were never real? This is the story of a college freshman, a seemingly ordinary dorm room, and a roommate who was never supposed to exist. This is a story that will chill you to the bone and make you question the very reality we inhabit. A story that will linger long after the lights go out. Unbeknownst to Sarah, whispers of her unusual roommate begin to circulate among the other students. They speak in hushed tones, their voices laced with a mixture of curiosity and fear. Strange rumors spread like wildfire through the dorm's grapevine. Tales of late-night noises emanating from Sarah's room, of disembodied voices whispering in the darkness. Sarah, oblivious to the growing whispers surrounding her, tries to rationalize the strange occurrences that plague her. She tells herself that it's just her imagination, that she's simply adjusting to her new surroundings. But as the incidents escalate, she can no longer ignore the unsettling feeling that something is amiss. One evening, as Sarah is studying in the library, she overhears a group of students discussing her roommate. Their words send chills down her spine. "Did you hear about the girl in room 213? One student whispers, her eyes wide with fear. "They say her roommate is different." Curiosity piqued, Sarah leans in closer, her heart pounding in her chest. "Different how?" another student asks, her voice barely a whisper. "They say she never leaves the room," the first student replies, her voice trembling slightly. "And no one has ever actually seen her face." Sarah's blood runs cold. She knows that they're talking about her roommate, the one person who is supposed to be her confidant, her companion in this new and unfamiliar world. But if what they're saying is true, who is she living with? Fear gnaws at the edges of Sarah's mind, threatening to consume her. She tries to dismiss the rumors as nothing more than idle gossip, but deep down she knows that something is not right. The line between reality and nightmare blurs as Sarah finds herself questioning her own sanity. She begins to notice subtle changes in her surroundings, almost imperceptible at first, but gradually growing more pronounced. Objects move slightly out of place as if disturbed by an unseen hand. A faint floral scent lingers in the air, even though Sarah has never worn perfume. And then there are the whispers, soft and indistinct, that seem to emanate from the very walls themselves. Driven to the brink by fear and uncertainty, Sarah confides in her resident advisor, Emily. Emily listens as Sarah recounts strange occurrences. Sarah realizes she has never seen her roommate leave. A cold dread washes over her. Her roommate is a phantom, a figment of her imagination. Emily reassures her, "We'll figure this out together." They discover Sarah's room is listed as single occupancy. Sarah's blood runs cold. She has been living with someone who doesn't exist. The dorm room now feels like a prison. Sarah and Emily embark on a quest to uncover the truth. They delve into the dorm's history, searching for clues. Their investigation leads them down a rabbit hole of eerie rumors. Moving into her dorm room, Sarah felt a surge of excitement. It was small, but cozy, with 2 beds, 2 desks, and a window overlooking a bustling quad. The walls were bare, waiting for her personal touch. She couldn't wait to make it her own. She began unpacking, carefully placing photos of her family and friends on her desk. Just then, the door creaked open and a girl with bright eyes and a warm smile stepped inside. "Hey, you must be Sarah," she said, extending a hand. "I'm Jessica, your roommate. Maybe having a roommate wouldn't be so bad after all." She had a feeling this was going to be an amazing year. The first few weeks of the semester flew by in a blur of new faces and challenging classes. Sarah quickly adjusted to college life thanks to Jessica's unwavering support. They shared meals, navigated campus, and studied together. Jessica's enthusiasm encouraged Sarah to embrace new experiences. With Jessica by her side, Sarah felt she could conquer the world. Sarah and Jessica's dorm room became their sanctuary, a cozy haven with fairy lights, photos, and throw pillows. They decorated it together, transforming the once sterile space. Fairy lights twinkled above their beds, photos of their families adorned the walls. A colorful rug brightened the floor. On weekends they would blast music and sing along. They spent hours talking about everything and nothing. Sharing hopes, dreams, and fears, they supported each other. One rainy Saturday, they watched a movie, sipping hot chocolate. Jessica turned to Sarah. "I'm really glad we met. I feel like I can be myself around you." Sarah nodded. "I feel the same way. You're one of the best friends I've ever had." Their friendship became an integral part of their college experience. They found a home away from home in each other. Sarah thrived academically and socially. She excelled in her classes. She made new friends and joined clubs. Jessica remained her rock and biggest cheerleader. College life was everything Sarah had hoped for and more. Life continued to blossom for Sarah. Classes proved both challenging and exhilarating. Her professors, renowned in their fields, ignited a passion for learning she never knew she possessed. She found herself immersed in her studies, spending hours in the library, poring over ancient texts and groundbreaking research papers. Yet, amidst this whirlwind of intellectual discovery, a subtle shift occurred. It began with fleeting moments, easily dismissed as tricks of the light or figments of a tired mind. Shadows seemed to lengthen in the dorm room at odd hours, even when the sun hung high in the sky. A chill settled over her skin, even on the warmest of days, as if a cold breath brushed against her neck. She found herself waking in the dead of night, heart pounding, a sense of unease gripping her like a vice. Jessica, however, seemed oblivious to these subtle disturbances. She remained her cheerful, energetic self, her laughter echoing through the dorm room, a stark contrast to the growing darkness that Sarah felt closing in. One evening, as Sarah sat at her desk, her mind struggling to grasp a particularly complex physics problem, she noticed something strange. Her reflection in the window, usually a comforting presence, seemed distorted, almost sinister. It was as if another face peered out from behind her own, its features obscured by shadow, yet undeniably menacing. She spun around, heart racing, but found nothing. The room was empty, save for her and the unsettling feeling that she was not alone. Shaking off the eerie experience, Sarah tried to focus on her studies. Yet, the incident left an indelible mark, a seed of doubt planted deep within her mind. The line between reality and imagination began to blur, and she found herself questioning her own sanity. The once welcoming dorm room now felt oppressive, the shadows lengthening with each passing day, threatening to consume her. The whispers started subtly, barely audible at first. Sarah would be studying when a faint murmur would reach her ears. It sounded like her name, uttered in a hushed, raspy voice. She would glance up, heart pounding, but the room would be silent. Jessica seemed oblivious to the unsettling sounds. As the days turned into weeks, the whispers grew louder. They seemed to emanate from the very walls themselves. She would wake in a cold sweat, heart racing. The dreams were always the same. She would be trapped in a dark, suffocating space. A shadowy figure would hover over her, exuding an aura of pure evil, and then she would hear the whispers, clear as day, taunting her. The nightmares left Sarah feeling drained, her nerves frayed. She tried to confide in Jessica, but the words caught in her throat. Fear paralyzed her. How could she explain the unexplainable, and how could she burden her cheerful roommate? So, Sarah suffered in silence, her fear growing. The whispers became her constant companions. The once vibrant colors of campus life seemed to fade. The laughter of her fellow students sounded distant. She withdrew into herself, avoiding social gatherings. The darkness now threatened to engulf her entirely. One evening, as Sarah returned to her dorm room, she noticed something amiss. The door was slightly ajar, a sliver of light spilling out into the hallway. "Jessica?" she called out, her voice echoing in the otherwise silent corridor. There was no answer. Pushing the door open, Sarah stepped inside, her heart pounding. The room was empty. Jessica's bed was neatly made, her textbooks stacked precisely on her desk. Her backpack was nowhere to be seen. Sarah checked everywhere, but Jessica was gone. A wave of panic washed over her. Where could she be? Desperate for answers, Sarah resolved to find Jessica no matter the cost. Days turned into a sleepless blur. Sarah confided in her friends about Jessica's disappearance. They dismissed her concerns. But unease grew as days passed. Jessica vanished without a trace. Her social media went silent. Sarah sought help from Emily, their resident advisor. She recounted the strange occurrences, the unanswered calls and texts. Emily promised to help. They reported Jessica's disappearance. Security agreed to investigate. They searched for clues but found nothing. Jessica had vanished without a trace. Days turned into weeks. Sarah was suffocated by grief. The campus felt like a haunted labyrinth. Whispers followed her everywhere. Sarah questioned her reality. She was trapped in a nightmare. The dorm room, once a shared sanctuary of laughter and whispered secrets, now stood as a silent indictment of Sarah's crumbling reality. Jessica's side of the room, usually a testament to her vibrant personality, was eerily pristine. Her bed, meticulously made, seemed to mock Sarah with its emptiness. The colorful tapestry Jessica had hung on the wall, adorned with images of exotic sea creatures, now seemed to stare down at her with vacant eyes. Sarah ran her fingers along the smooth surface of Jessica's desk, her own reflection staring back at her, a mask of fear and confusion. She picked up a framed photograph of Jessica and her family, their smiles frozen in time, a painful reminder of the life that had been ripped away. The weight of Jessica's absence pressed down on Sarah, suffocating her with a grief that was amplified by the growing suspicion that something sinister had befallen her friend. The whispers, once confined to the darkness of her nightmares, now seemed to permeate every corner of the room, taunting her with their insidious insinuations. "Where is she?" they hissed, their voices a chorus of icy dread that sent shivers down Sarah's spine. "What have you done with her?" Sarah buried her face in her hands, her shoulders shaking with sobs. She had lost her roommate, her confidant, her friend, and in her place remained a void, a gaping hole in Sarah's life that threatened to swallow her whole. The once familiar dorm room, now a prison of her own making, offered no solace. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of leaves outside the window sent Sarah's heart racing. Her mind conjuring up images of Jessica, her face contorted in fear, her voice pleading for help. She was trapped in a nightmare, a labyrinth of her own terror, and there seemed to be no escape. Word of Jessica's disappearance spread through the campus like wildfire, transforming the once carefree atmosphere into one of apprehension and dread. Missing person flyers bearing Jessica's smiling face and a plea for information appeared on bulletin boards, lampposts, and the windows of local businesses. Students, their faces etched with concern, gathered in hushed groups, exchanging worried glances and whispered speculations. The local media descended upon the campus, their cameras capturing every tear, every furrowed brow, every desperate plea for answers. The story of the missing college student, her disappearance shrouded in mystery, became a national sensation. Her name and face splashed across television screens and newspaper headlines. Yet amidst the media frenzy and the outpouring of concern, Jessica remained missing. Sarah, her grief compounded by a growing sense of guilt and responsibility, found herself at the center of the investigation. Detectives, their faces hardened by years of dealing with the worst of humanity, questioned her relentlessly, their questions probing every aspect of her relationship with Jessica, every detail of the days leading up to her disappearance. Search parties, comprised of police officers, volunteers, and distraught students, scoured the campus and the surrounding areas, their hopes dwindling with each passing hour. They combed through wooded areas, searched abandoned buildings, and dredged nearby bodies of water, but their efforts proved futile. Jessica had vanished without a trace, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions and a campus on edge. Emily, her brow furrowed with concern, sat at her desk in the resident advisor's office, the dim light casting long shadows across the cluttered workspace. She had been reviewing dorm room assignments, hoping to find some clue, some overlooked detail that could shed light on Jessica's disappearance. Her eyes scanned the list of names, her finger tracing the lines of text, when she stumbled upon a chilling discrepancy. Sarah's name was listed as expected, but next to it, in the space designated for her roommate, was a blank space. Emily double-checked the database, her heart pounding in her chest. There was no record of a Jessica ever being assigned to that room, no record of her ever having been a student at the university. A wave of nausea washed over Emily as she realized the horrifying implication of her discovery. She grabbed her phone, her fingers trembling as she dialed Sarah's number. "Sarah, it's Emily," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "I need you to come to my office right away, it's important." Sarah, her voice thick with exhaustion and grief, mumbled a response. She had been holed up in her dorm room, unable to face the concerned glances and whispered speculations of her fellow students, the constant reminders of Jessica's absence. Emily met Sarah at the door, her face pale, her expression a mixture of fear and urgency. She led Sarah to her desk, pointing to the computer screen. "Sarah, there's something you need to see," she said, her voice trembling. "This is Jessica's student file. Or rather, it's not." Sarah stared at the blank screen, her mind struggling to grasp the implications of Emily's words. The truth hit Sarah like a physical blow, stealing the breath from her lungs and leaving her reeling in a dizzying vortex of shock and disbelief. Jessica, her cheerful roommate, her confidant, her friend, had never existed. Not as a student at the university, not as an occupant of their dorm room, not as a tangible presence in Sarah's life. It was as if someone had reached into her memories, carefully excising Jessica from every shared experience, every late-night conversation, every inside joke. The whispers once dismissed as figments of her imagination now echoed with chilling clarity, their insidious insinuations morphing into terrifying truths. "We told you she wasn't real," they hissed, their voices a chorus of icy dread that seemed to emanate from the very walls themselves. "You were warned." Sarah's mind raced, desperately trying to reconcile the impossible truth with the memories she had cherished, the friendship she had believed to be real. She recalled their first meeting, Jessica's warm smile, the ease with which they had fallen into conversation. She remembered their shared laughter, their late-night study sessions, their whispered secrets. How could all of that be nothing more than a fabrication, a cruel trick played on her by her own mind? The weight of her shattered reality pressed down on Sarah, threatening to crush her beneath its unbearable weight. She stumbled back from the computer screen, her hand flying to her mouth to stifle a scream. The office, once a place of comfort and support, now felt suffocating, the air thick with an unseen menace. She had to get out, had to escape the suffocating truth that threatened to consume her. Sarah turned and fled, her footsteps echoing in the empty hallway, her mind a maelstrom of fear and confusion. Sarah found herself adrift in a sea of unfamiliar faces, each one a potential threat, each one a silent observer to her unraveling sanity. The once comforting bustle of campus life now seemed chaotic, overwhelming, a cacophony of sights and sounds that grated against her raw nerves. The whispers, once confined to the shadows of her dorm room, now followed her everywhere, their insidious voices weaving their way into her thoughts, amplifying her fear, her doubt, her growing sense of isolation. She clutched the framed photograph of Jessica and her family, the smiling faces now a haunting reminder of the life that had never been. Her fingers traced the outline of Jessica's face, her mind replaying shared memories, searching for a flicker of truth in the wreckage of her shattered reality. But the harder she tried to hold on to the past, the more elusive it became, slipping through her fingers like grains of sand. As darkness descended, casting long shadows across the campus, Sarah found herself drawn to the one place she had been desperately trying to avoid, her dorm room. It was there, in the heart of her shattered reality, that she felt a strange pull, an irresistible urge to confront the unknown, to unravel the mystery of Jessica's existence, to make sense of the madness that had taken root in her mind. With trembling hands, she reached for the doorknob, her heart pounding in her chest. Taking a deep breath, she steeled herself for whatever lay beyond, for the truth, however terrifying, that awaited her inside. The door creaked open, revealing the dimly lit room, the shadows dancing in the corners, the whispers beckoning her inside. Sarah stepped across the threshold, her fate hanging in the balance, her sanity teetering on the brink. The revelation that Jessica had never been a registered student sent shockwaves through Sarah's world. She felt like the ground had been ripped out from under her, her reality fracturing into a million pieces. Desperate for answers, she threw herself into a frantic search for the truth. The library, once a sanctuary of knowledge and quiet contemplation, became her battleground. She spent countless hours poring over old yearbooks, student directories, and any scrap of information she could find about past residents of her dorm room. Sleep became a luxury she could no longer afford, her dreams haunted by fleeting glimpses of Jessica, her laughter echoing in the corridors of Sarah's exhausted mind. Days blurred into nights as she chased down every lead, every whisper, every rumor that might lead her to the truth about her phantom roommate. Sarah sought out the campus historian, a kindly old professor with a passion for preserving the university's past. She poured her heart out to him, her voice trembling with a mixture of fear and desperation as she recounted her experience. The professor listened intently, his brow furrowed in thought, his fingers gently stroking his white beard. When Sarah finished her story, the professor remained silent for a long moment, his eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and understanding. "There have been stories," he said finally, his voice barely a whisper. "Rumors of strange occurrences in that dorm, whispers of a tragedy that happened there many years ago." He led Sarah to a wall adorned with framed photographs of the university throughout the years. His finger hovered over a faded image of the very building that housed Sarah's dorm. The photograph showed a group of students from the 1960s, their faces blurred and indistinct, their smiles tinged with a melancholic air. The professor pointed to a young woman in the center of the picture, her eyes bright and full of life, her laughter seemingly frozen in time. "Her name was Elizabeth," the professor said, his voice heavy with a mixture of sadness and regret. "A brilliant student, full of promise. She lived in the very same room you do now." Sarah leaned closer, her gaze drawn to Elizabeth's eyes. Even in the faded photograph she could sense a kindred spirit, a flicker of shared experience that transcended time. "What happened to her?" Sarah asked, her voice barely a whisper, her heart pounding in her chest. The professor hesitated, his gaze drifting to the window, where the last rays of sunlight painted the sky in hues of orange and purple. "It was a different time," he said finally, his voice heavy with unspoken words. "Mental illness was not something people talked about openly. Elizabeth," she struggled. She felt alone, isolated, and one cold winter night. The professor's voice trailed off, the unspoken ending hanging in the air like a shroud. Sarah's mind raced, connecting the dots, piecing together the fragments of a story buried beneath layers of time and silence. She spent the next few days lost in the university archives, her fingers tracing the faded ink of old newspaper articles, her heart aching for the young woman whose life had been tragically cut short. Elizabeth's story unfolded before Sarah's eyes, a tale of unfulfilled potential, of a bright mind silenced too soon. The newspaper articles painted a grim picture of Elizabeth's final days. She had been a brilliant student, excelling in her studies, but behind her cheerful facade, she had been battling a darkness that no one seemed to see. On a cold December night, Elizabeth's body was found in their dorm room. The official cause of death was ruled a suicide, an overdose of sleeping pills. But rumors persisted, whispers of foul play, of an unseen force that had driven Elizabeth to her death. She had to break the cycle to confront the darkness that had haunted her dorm room for decades, and she owed it to herself to reclaim her sanity, her peace of mind, her life. Standing in the center of the room, Sarah closed her eyes, her breath catching in her throat. She could feel the weight of Elizabeth's despair pressing down on her, the echoes of her pain reverberating through the very walls. "Elizabeth," Sarah whispered, her voice trembling but firm, "I know you're here, I know you're hurt, but you're not alone, not anymore." A cold breeze swept through the room, rustling the curtains, sending goosebumps erupting across Sarah's skin. The air crackled with an unseen energy, the shadows dancing in the corners as if coming to life. And then, slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, a soft light began to emanate from the far corner of the room. It grew brighter, taking on a shape, a form, until Sarah could make out the outline of a young woman, her features delicate, her eyes filled with a profound sadness. It was Elizabeth. Her image shimmered, a ghostly apparition caught between worlds, her gaze fixed on Sarah with an intensity that both terrified and compelled her. Sarah fought the urge to run, to scream, to retreat into the safety of denial. Instead, she took a step forward, her hand outstretched, her palm facing Elizabeth. "It's okay," Sarah said, her voice soft, unwavering. "You don't have to be afraid anymore, I'm here now." As Sarah spoke, she felt a shift in the atmosphere, a lightening of the oppressive energy that had permeated the room. Elizabeth's form wavered, her image becoming more distinct. The sadness in her eyes slowly giving way to a flicker of hope, of gratitude. She reached out a translucent hand, her fingers brushing against Sarah's, a symbolic connection bridging the gap between worlds, the living and the dead, the past and the present. A warmth spread through Sarah's hand, filling the room with a sense of peace. The whispers faded into silence, replaced by a profound stillness. Sarah understood Elizabeth had been a scared young woman, her cries for help unheard, her pain unseen. Sarah felt a surge of compassion for Elizabeth. As Elizabeth's form began to fade, her features softening, the room felt lighter, the shadows receding. Sarah stood alone, a single tear tracing her cheek. She had faced her fears and found solace. The world around her seemed brighter, more vibrant. She had gained a connection to the past, and a newfound appreciation for life. Life, as it always does, went on. Sarah continued her studies, her mind sharper, her focus keener. She excelled in her classes, impressing her professors. The whispers now seemed distant, like echoes from a forgotten dream. Elizabeth's spirit was at peace, a reminder of life's fragility and the power of empathy. Sarah made new friends, sharing laughter and late-night study sessions. She found solace in their company, easing her loneliness. Yet, a part of her remained tethered to that fateful semester. The memory of Jessica lingered, blurring the lines between reality and illusion. Sometimes, late at night, Sarah could almost hear Elizabeth's laughter. The experience had left an indelible mark on her soul. She emerged stronger, more resilient, more compassionate. The haunted dorm room and whispers were part of her journey. She looked to the future with a newfound appreciation for life. The sun, breaking through the clouds, symbolized new beginnings. Sarah took a deep breath and stepped forward, ready to embrace the future. The experience had changed her, but it had not broken her. She was a survivor, a testament to the enduring strength of the human spirit. And as she walked away from the shadows, she carried the knowledge that the light within us never truly fades.